Tell him, McCluskey. Tell him what time it is.
Little Hen says it's time to rock and roll.
All you people are so scared of me.
Come quietly or there will be trouble.
Man, that's just me.
I'm Batman.
This is Sparta!
There is a tiger in the bathroom!
I'm an excellent driver.
If it bleeds, we can kill it.
Pop quiz, hotshot.
Keep the change, you filthy animal.
This guy's insane.
Well, he thought he was the subject of a secret government mind control project.
This'll take a minute.
Sure.
As it turns out, he really was being given daily doses of LSD for 11 years.
Well, in that case, it looks great.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome to this week's Monday Movie Show. I'm Stuart.
I'm Andrew.
We have, let's just say, a lot of films to review this week. They are
Sandra Bullock and Melissa McCarthy starring together in The Heat. We have the latest big Hollywood horror buzz that has come about, The Conjuring. We have the sequel to the film that you heard there in the opening credits of Red 2. We have the latest from Studio Ghibli of From Up on Poppy Hill, so Stuart's going to go absolutely mental about that. Oh, yeah. And we also have the latest from Nicholas Winding Refn, so I'm going to go kind of crazy about that, which is Only God Forgives.
Yeah, on top of that, we have the UK box office top 10 and some movie news. If you listen to us live, you can get us in the live chat. There is also a question which I've posted on Twitter and Facebook. All I want to know is, what film will you refuse to watch? Or what film series will you refuse to watch? It was just because there was I don't know what made it come into my mind, and I just threw it out there, and I thought it would be an interesting question for the show. So send in your responses either in the live chat, if you listen to the show live, or on Twitter, at Monday Movie Show. You can get Andy EHDVD on me, at Cryptic Tadpole. You can also send us a message on Facebook as well. I'll read a few out during the cinema show and during the DVD and Blu-ray section of the show, but we'll kick off with some movie news first.
Yeah, according to website Deadline, Denzel Washington has been offered the role and declined the role of the villain in what would be the 8th movie in the Fast and Furious franchise. The website stated that the studio is now looking for another big star to join the next film in a small role and then be a big part of the film that follows. Denzel Washington just turned down that opportunity, but they'll undoubtedly get somebody important by the time the Conjuring helmer, James Wan, I haven't done that right, haven't I yet? James Wan starts shooting the 7th film, and the 7th film is due to be released on July 11th, 2014, so less than a year away.
Yeah, they want to turn it into a new trilogy as well, so James Wan might be there for the 3 films.
I think because it's a new director, because Justin Lin has helmed it now for the last 4 films.
Pretty much,
so
yeah.
I'd like to see what James Wan does first before saying, yeah, let's sign him up for a trilogy.
Yeah, that's true. By the sounds of it, he's going to be on board for the 8th one, maybes. We'll see how because this, like I've said, he hasn't done this kind of film before, to be honest.
Yeah.
Death Sentence is the only film very similar in a way. The rest of the movies that he's done are horror films, so
yeah, although it's only
handle action.
Death Sentence does have action, but not a lot, only a little bit at the end, but it is quite well handled in that. In other news, 20th Century Fox recently changed their mind regarding the sequels for James Cameron's Avatar. The studio, which originally decided there would be 2 sequels, has now announced that there will in fact be 3 sequels. The plan is to film the movies simultaneously at an estimated cost of approximately $1 billion. You should do that in Dr. Evil, really, shouldn't I? $1 billion. With releases planned for the much-coveted December slot in 2016, 2017 and 2018.
$1 billion for the 3 films. So that means each film has got around about $300 million each. Does that include advertising costs as well, or is the advertising costs extra money that they'll be getting?
No idea. I mean, the thing is that they've got the technology now done because Cameron pioneered it on Avatar. If you've seen the special edition of Avatar and the extras, you can see all that because it's really quite interesting. But the thing is that I reckon that Fox has seen it. They've gone, okay, we want Avatar sequels because Avatar sequels will do money. But then they've gone and realised, okay, it's going to cost us a bit more to do it. How much more will it cost us just to film more stuff and make 3 films? I bet that's what they've done. They've gone, yeah, we'll spread the cost against 3 films instead of the 2.
If it doesn't include the advertising budgets, then these are going to be the 3 most expensive films ever created.
quite possibly.
I'm hoping that 1 billion is the advertising costs added into it as well, because that's just insanity giving him that much money.
I'm not sure exactly how much it is that Avatar made, but it made $1 billion, didn't it? So it's one of the few films that has done it. And my final piece of news is that Warner Brothers is said to be eyeing an actor in his mid-40s to play a seasoned Batman in Zack Snyder's Batman vs Superman movie. No names have been confirmed, but fans have been speculating on several people, the favourite of which appears to be No Country for Old Men actor Josh Brolin. It's rumoured that Warner Brothers wanted Christian Bale to return to the role from Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy, but the actor was not interested.
Yeah, I don't think I would have not wanted Christian Bale, to be honest. I think he's had his time as Batman. It is sort of like the Doctor Who kind of thing, where they've gone with a completely different, like older kind of Doctor Who, and older Batman might be interesting.
I wouldn't have minded if they'd done it with Christian Bale, but if they had planned it when they were doing the Dark Knight trilogy, because the Dark Knight trilogy is locked off and done, and there wasn't any planning for crossing over at that time. So there's no point tacking him on now. If they're going to do it, they're going to have to do it new. But I'm interested in the idea that they're going to do an older Batman, show someone who's... They're not doing a Batman Origins again, or a new Batman. They're doing Batman who's been there and established.
Yeah. I've got a couple of quick pieces of news stories. According to Variety, Jeremy Renner is set to reprise his role as Aaron Cross in a fifth Bond film. It's also been indicated that Anthony Peckham, who worked on Sherlock Holmes and Invictus, will pen the script for the fifth film.
I'm kind of looking forward to this. I'm guessing you're not, because you weren't especially enthralled with the last Bond film, were you?
They need to flesh his character out much more, because I don't think he was a very strong character at all, considering going after Jason Bourne, and it wasn't much of a strong character.
I really hope that they will try and get Matt Damon to come back, not for the whole film, but I'd love to see at some point the two of them meet up or something and cross paths for something, and then have it go off. And I mean, maybe set it up for Jason Bourne to come back in a little bit in this one, and then come back properly for the next film after that. Because I guarantee if this one does all right, they'll make another one, and I'm fine with that as long as it's good quality.
Yeah, let's hope. And final piece of news, Warner Brothers are reportedly set to revive its live-action version of Akira, which has stalled on numerous occasions. The director of Unknown, Wam Colette Serra, is set to come back on board. However, Henry Joost and Ariel Schulman, who worked on the last two Paranormal Activity films, are also in talks. If the film will return, it's set to have its budget reduced as well.
Question is, who are they going to try and cast for it? I mean, when they had it previous times they tried, Leonardo DiCaprio was attached at one point, Keanu Reeves was attached at another. I doubt either of them probably now. It's been that many years, they're too old, so they're going to have to go younger for the role.
Yeah, slightly unknown actor, maybe he's an actor in his mid-20s, I would say.
Yeah, it's the character of Kaneda in the film was the question or not are they going to go play... Because the thing is, obviously, Keanu Reeves has got a Japanese ancestry, so are they going to try and go with someone like Leonardo DiCaprio, or are they going to try and go with someone like Keanu Reeves?
I see somewhere in between, but slightly much younger, in his mid-20s, very, very early 30s.
Yeah,
I would say. Right, before I go into before we quickly get through the UK box office top 10, a couple of films that people refuse to watch. From Page to Screen, or Stuart, who we know, he said a Serbian film, Human Centipede 2, Keith Lemon. So he refuses to watch any of them.
I wish I'd refused to watch Keith Lemon.
Yeah, and I've seen 2 of the 3, and I'm being forced to watch a Serbian film. The Tribrand, or Gaz on Twitter, says the new Conan, because that was Arnie and anyone else playing it is insulting. So he's not seen the new Conan.
Yeah, he's quite lucky then. That was quite a wise decision, to be honest.
Mon on Neo55506 on Twitter says he likes to keep an open mind and give everything a chance, but can't bring himself to watch Mamma Mia.
I have no disagreement with that statement.
Yeah, GameStar Junkie on Twitter says the Stallone remake of Get Carter. He refuses to watch it.
I've seen half of that film. It takes a lot for me to turn off a film.
Yeah, and one more. Rob McGregor on Twitter says anything with Melissa McCarthy in it. So I'm guessing he's not going to see the first review of the night then.
Probably not, or one of the other films that's coming up this year, I think, isn't there? Another one she's in? I can't remember now.
Yeah, okay. UK box office top 10 time.
Yeah, number 10, Man of Steel. Let's just go straight on to number 9, yep. Francis Ha.
Which is, I think his name is Noah Baumbach. He's a sort of like indie director. It's a black and white film centered around Greta Gerwig's character, who just lumbers around with her friends. We haven't seen it. It looks a very sort of like low-key kind of basic movie, but Baumbach seems to do really well with this kind of film.
It's done not bad for itself, £150,000. Number 8, World War Z.
Which we've said everything we can about the film. It's good, but it could have been better.
Number 7, The Internship, which I don't think you've seen yet, have you?
No.
I'm kind of curious for this when it comes out DVD, just if anything, to see what you think of it, because I thought it was really funny. I've heard mixed reviews. I really liked it. I thought it was very funny and not gross out funny as well. So it actually did have kind of heart and predictable, but fun. Number 6, Pacific Rim.
Slightly brain dead, definitely brain dead for a Guillermo del Toro film, but one of the most entertaining films I've seen this year, easily. I've seen it twice. It's leave your brain at the door, but you'll extremely enjoy what you're experiencing for the 2 hours that it's on.
Number 5, Now You See Me.
It's surprisingly done extremely well for itself. I never would have thought this film would get more than £10 million when it leaves the UK box office top 10. It's really surprising how well it's done. Well done to it. It's a forgettable film, but it's not too bad.
Yeah, and for me, I hated the ending. If you've seen it, you'll understand why. Number 4 is The World's End.
The worst of the Cornetto trilogy. It has its funny moments at times. Simon Pegg's character is just too obnoxious in the movie. Nick Frost, I think, is the best thing about the film. They decided to switch the characters on their head so that they have different roles to play. It's not too bad, but it could have been better.
Number 3, I'm not going to do it, Despicable Me 2.
It's just become the highest grossing movie of this year in the UK, beating Iron Man 3, and it's still not out of the box office top 10. So that's
still not out of the top
well
5. It's still in the top 5.
In the US, it's taken $326 million on a $70-80 million budget.
Oh yeah,
so
the Minions movie is definitely happening.
It's smashed all animated films this year easily.
Which I'm kind of happy with because of the fact that it is, for me, better than the number 2 movie, Monsters University.
Very, very, very weak prequel. It didn't need a prequel. They should have just went on with a proper sequel because we already knew practically about Sully's and Mike's life, so we didn't need a prequel to it. It's just very lackluster.
Which means the new number 1, the only other new entry this week other than Francis Ha is The Wolverine at number 1.
Yeah, Andy reviewed it last week. I saw this the day after the show went out. Ironically, I just found a very weak film. It's weak in practically every single category. The acting's weak. The story is very weak. It plods along. The set pieces are not really that interesting. It's better than X-Men Origins Wolverine.
Yes.
But that was easy because I didn't like X-Men Origins Wolverine. I can understand where Andy was coming from when he said things like there was the battle on the train, when how comes people didn't notice all the scratch marks on the train itself. It just didn't flow very well. It wasn't acted very well. It seemed like Hugh Jackman only came back to it because he was maybe interested in playing the Wolverine for one more time until he's in the new X-Men movie. The little clip that's about 45 seconds into the credits is the best thing about the film.
Yeah, I completely agree with that.
Right, I'm going to go to an ad break, and after that we'll have our first review.
Hey folks, it's Al the Bald Gamer Dude from Menage Geek Podcast, and I'm here to ask you, what do you want in a podcast? Is it talking? Is it funny stuff? Is it two guys and a girl having a chat? Is it video game news? Is it movie news? Is it TV stuff? Is it just geek all out your ears and into your brain? If it is, then why are you not listening to us? We're on Spreaker, we're on Stitcher, we're on iTunes, we're on Twitter, all Menage a Geek. Menage a Geek. Listen to us.
Hi, this is Ben Lloyd Holmes from Monster Movie The Expedition. Come find us on Twitter and Facebook at Expedition Movie. You're listening to Movie Mondays.
So, welcome back to this week's show. Because we have a lot of films to review, we went through the UK box office top 10 and news very quickly, so let's get the reviews out the way with.
The Heat. Directed by Paul Feig, who directed Bridesmaid, which also starred Melissa McCarthy, as this film does, along with Sandra Bullock. The movie starts with Sandra Bullock's character, who is an FBI agent who's trying to basically get herself promoted into the job of her superior, who has now been promoted to go somewhere else. He hasn't elected anyone else to take over his job, but she's kind of bucking for the promotion. And so he sent her on a mission to New York to actually interview this guy who's just been arrested, who has a connection to this big drug lord that they're looking for. The problem is that the guy who's just been arrested has been arrested by Melissa McCarthy, who is a Boston police officer, when Sandra Bullock's character gets there, the two of them kind of butt heads, disagree with each other over who's in charge, over the best way to do everything. Ultimately, then end up sort of winding up joining together because they don't want to, but because they need to. And are sent on basically a mission to try and find every lead they can and investigate to find this mysterious drug dealer who is only known by a name, which unfortunately I don't have here. And it's all about this camaraderie of the two, the odd couple thing. At one point, they make a trip to Melissa McCarthy's character's family, which is a big Boston house, as you can imagine. All hell kind of breaks loose. Here's a clip.
So. Sometimes you don't listen to Enough.
It's one of the better Jesus sports-themed paintings I've seen. It's very good. Nice.
Are you a knock?
I'm sorry?
Are you a knock?
A knock. Sorry, I don't know what that is.
A knock. A knock. Am I speaking Japanese?
Yeah, listen to him.
I'm gonna sound it out for you. Are you, or are you not a knock? Like Johnny Depp in 21 Jump Street.
I see. Okay, a narc.
A knock, yes.
Yes. No,
what was I saying?
I was missing the R when you were saying. I heard knock.
What are you? What are you doing here? What are you doing?
I'm a federal agent. I'm a special agent.
Are you a boy or a girl?
It's a fair question. I'm female.
No kidding.
All woman.
From the get-go? No operation?
From birth, yes.
How you get that close to shave on your face?
I need to go, but I'll be back to...
nice knowing you.
Yes, thank you.
So what you have here is basically a buddy cop movie mixed together with the Odd Couple movie, mixed together with basically clips from every kind of 80s cop buddies, every that kind of partnership films from the 80s. And I mean things like... And there's distinct things in this, like you heard that clip there, which I didn't know about, but that clip was used a year ago, as far as I'm aware, in a sitcom, How I Met Your Mother, and you know that's the kind of thing. For me, every single point in this film, there's something in it to go, oh, I've seen that before in something else. Oh, I've seen that in something else. Oh, we're doing this now. Okay, I get this. Oh yeah, I've seen that. And it's kind of all loosely woven together. It's literally like a whole bunch of all these scenes. Someone's just gone and got a whole collection of their videos and DVDs of all their 80s, their favourite 80s films, like, you know, Tango and Cash, that kind of cheesy 80s popcorn action films where there's two guys who have to get together. The only thing they've done differently in this film is get two women to play the main characters.
So I'm guessing it's turned into Cagney and Lacey, the comedy film.
Yeah, but basically, I mean, it's taken... It's the fact that it goes from one scene to another, and it's kind of like you can go... Oh, okay, so this scene is ending, so we're just going to jump to another scene now. We're not going to have anything that really connects the two. It's just going to be, you know, this scene, they're in a building and they're in a room, and the next thing you see, they're straight back at the police headquarters. There's no thing transition from the building where they are to the police headquarters. It's just, oh, we better get back to police headquarters. Click, like that, they're back there. It's very jumpy because of the fact it just feels like it's block scene A, block scene B, block scene C, and it really has this disjointed feeling to it. The jokes are not as crude as they have been in some other films. It's definitely not got the level of crudeness that there was with Bridesmaid, the previous film from the same director, and Melissa McCarthy. Melissa McCarthy is kind of restrained a little bit in this at parts, but the thing is that through the whole film, I laughed a couple times, and they weren't big laughs. When I saw it, it was in a sold-out cinema screen, and people were laughing, but you knew there were people. I mean, it's kind of like people were. It's almost you could hold up a sign going "Laugh now." People were doing it. It felt so forced, the laughter from the audience. It didn't feel like they were genuinely laughing, and I was sitting there literally going, "What are they watching? You know, are they feeding laughing gas up to the people behind me or something?" It's not badly put together. It's just put together with no soul, and as like I said, it is a cut and paste job from all these other films. And it's just, for me, that's not a movie. That is a clip show
or a jigsaw puzzle in film form, or something you buy from IKEA. slot year into slot.
Well, no, because at least with IKEA, you get an end result that, like, you know, you put it together and you're like, okay, I'm pleased with that. Yeah, I'm happy. If this was a piece of IKEA furniture, it would be a chair. I'd put it together, I would sit in it, and it would fall apart.
Or actually, it definitely would fall apart if I put it together. So I've got no DIY skills at all. I'm not interested in this film, to be honest, because I don't find Melissa McCarthy funny, and
you're doing it on DVD, so
I know. So I'm definitely not looking forward to that. Okay, next up is The Conjuring. It's directed by James Wan. This is his second to last horror film that he's doing before he goes off and attempts to try and do action films, including the next Fast and Furious movie. It's set in 1971, and it's based around a family called the Perron family, Carolyn and Roger Perron, who were played by Lily Taylor and Ron Livingston. They've moved their family, which is 5 daughters, into this sort of like dilapidated, old, abandoned house, which they've bought off the bank at auction. It's a lovely, giant house, loads of gorgeous rooms in it, and it seems to be idyllic for them. They enjoy their family life inside the house. Little tiny strange things happen. They hear a few creaks in the ceiling and the floorboards. All of a sudden, their dog goes missing one day, and it's nothing to be expected. However, the dog turns up dead, and they expect that it might be somebody else from a town nearby. Then things start to get even more strange when birds start to fly into the window. They hear much more louder noises. Bruises start to appear on Carolyn's arms, on her neck. The children start to see these scary figures in the doorway or behind the door. And ultimately, Carolyn thinks it's a good idea if she gets in contact with these paranormal investigators, who are the Warrens, played by Vera Farmiga and Patrick Wilson. Now, this thing is actually based around a true story. The Warrens were more famous for doing the Amityville Haunting. This is actually set before the Amityville Haunting, and this is supposedly their toughest case they've ever actually done. They get involved with it, and things start to get even more worse. Here's a clip.
Ed, we're getting something.
Just saying. No. Wait. We need this.
Why don't we need pictures of Cindy?
She didn't trigger it.
What do you mean she didn't trigger it?
Somebody's with her. Who?
There's someone else in there with her.
This is, like I said, is based on a true story, because the Warrens are actually real. You can do your research about them, find out about them on Wikipedia, etc. They were involved with the Amityville Haunting case, which they took after this. In the original story, this supposedly took over a year for them to sort out. In the film, it only lasts about a week, 2 weeks, because the Warrens do actually move in to the Perroni family's house to try and help them out. But like I said, things escalate and get much more worse. Now, if this wasn't in the hands of somebody like James Wan, because James Wan, in my opinion, is one of these directors who I think he's a fantastic horror director. He can take tropes that we've seen before and make something, I wouldn't say fresh about them, but make them still feel slightly scary. I like the way he directs. He was involved with the first Saw film, and then he got out of the Saw series, realising that it was going to go downhill. He did things like the Death Sentence, and he did Dead Silence as well. He did Insidious, which the sequel's out on September Friday the 13th. So he is used to this kind of film, and yes, this is a checklist of every single trope you have seen in every single scary movie since the dawning of scary movies. But because, like I said, the way Wan directs, the way he's got an eye for detail, this looks like a proper 70s film. Not just a set that's set in the 70s, but it looks like a proper 70s film. It still has the scares, it still has the tensions. Somebody who was sitting next to me in the screening of the cinema, I don't think she's ever been to a horror film ever in her life, because she had her legs up on the chair, and she turned her body to the sideways and refused to actually look directly at the screen. Any tiny little creak of a door or anything which indicated that there was going to be a shock going to happen, she would jump out of her seat. There was a woman who was laughing because obviously I'm guessing that was the way she'd get over her scares, and so the audience actually behaved themselves, and they were scared in areas where you might expect to be scared. A couple of little giggles here and there, because one likes to inject a tiny little bit of humour into his films. So it worked for the audience, it worked for me, but it didn't scare me. It takes a hell of a lot to scare me, and because everything that's been done before in a horror film is in this, it didn't scare me. But I still enjoyed it. I did enjoy it.
Okay, I'm surprised by that, although I'm still not going to see it, and I doubt I'm going to watch it on DVD.
Oh no, you'll jump and scream like a little girl, definitely.
I'm going to go on to Red 2, which is the sequel to Red, which was we heard in the opening credits of the show. Carries on with the character of Frank Moses, played by Bruce Willis, who is now living the suburban happy life with Sarah, played by Mary Louise Parker. Things seem to be going okay for them, although they're kind of the romance between the two of them is kind of getting a bit stagnant and not feeling kind of excited or anything, because nothing's really going on. When Frank is approached by Marvin saying that he needs his help with something because something's going on, Marvin then apparently is killed in a bombing of his car, and Frank then has to go on the run because him and Sarah are actually attacked then, and they need to try and stay alive. They go on the run, trying to figure out exactly what's going on and find a connection to a document online which apparently links them to a nuclear device from the 70s called Nightshade, which was created by a character played by Anthony Hopkins. When they're looking into all this, they receive a call, which is a bit of a surprise, a blast from the past, of a familiar voice that you may recognise from the first film. Here's a clip.
Yeah.
MI6 has just given me a contract to kill you. Apparently you're guilty of nuclear terrorism, murder, and you're #1 on Interpol's Most Wanted.
What did you say?
Well, I said yes. You know, the money's good, and anyway, if I don't do it, somebody else will.
It's bad, isn't it?
Is that Marvin?
Yes, and Sarah.
Send them my love, will you?
Driving me crazy. Marvin gave her a gun.
Was it loaded?
Yes. Yes.
Are you being controlling?
No.
Well, you have to take chances in a relationship. You have to be supportive.
I don't need her to fit in, I just need her to be safe.
Just rent Dirty Dancing, tell her you love her. You know, it's important to enjoy life while you still can.
So here's the thing with Red. The first film, Red 2 rather, the first film is it is one of those guilty pleasures. It's not a brilliant film, but it's fun. It's quirky. It's comedy at points, and it has some nice little sort of twists and turns in it that you don't necessarily see the first time round. And it has these little nice performances of all the cast that you recognise and sort of familiar faces. Red 2 is basically more of the same. It's not as good or as well constructed as the first one. It rushes along a bit and has a bit of issue sometimes with pacing, and has some sort of jokes that fall a bit flat in it. But it's kind of, you know, it is the band getting back together, and it's not a bad sequel. It's not a good sequel. It's just an average sequel, but in a good way. I mean, I enjoyed it. I laughed a bit. I didn't laugh a lot, but I was watching it and I'm like, yeah, okay, this is fun. I'm having fun. I'm enjoying this. I'm not caring about the time, and I just went along with it, had fun. So if you like the first one, you see this, you'll probably enjoy it. It's not quite as good, as I said. There are some sort of inconsistencies a bit that are annoying, but there are a couple of moments in it which genuinely did make me laugh quite loudly, quite strongly, because some of the laughs were really good, but just there wasn't enough of them in this one. The other thing you've got as well, that you don't have Carl Urban, which I think was a crucial part of the first one, what made the first one work really good, in that you had this enemy that he was actually quite a threatening enemy. And that's kind of lacking in this one. It's missing from this one. So unfortunately that doesn't quite work, but everything else, perfectly fine.
So perfectly fine, like the first one.
No, perfectly fine in a good one, in a good way. Not, I didn't walk out and go, yeah, okay, that was just more of the same, and I was bored. Yeah, okay, that was more of the same, and I enjoyed it.
Okay, then before we go on to the next review, a couple of more. I'm going to read out from the question that I said. What film will you refuse to see? And Boogoos in the live chat, he says any torture porn film, which I would probably guess that's what he was going to see here anyway. So So that's an obvious one. Sunny Phoenix on Twitter said, now this is another choice for this film, the Stallone version of Get Carter. Nothing against Stallone, but love the original in him instead of Kane as more than the brain can cope.
Yeah, it's really. I've seen the remake. Well, as I said, I started watching the remake of Get Carter, and I generally, if I start watching a film, I will try and watch it through to the end. Got through about 40 minutes, turned it off. It's really that bad.
Yeah, Anne McCulloch on Facebook said Titanic. She's never seen Titanic and refuses to watch it.
Never?
Never.
How can you've never seen Titanic?
Well,
I mean,
she hasn't, so you have to ask her.
No, that's gotta be a joke. You can't have never seen Titanic. It's like never seen Star Wars.
And Bernsey Behal, who does Holocaust, he said Greece.
Yeah, I saw that. I was going to comment on it, but I was busy at the time, so I didn't get back to it. But I genuinely was like, yeah, okay, I can agree with that. I've seen Greece, but I don't like it.
Yeah, I've seen Greece and Greece too, so...
Oh dear yeah, indeed.
On that bombshell, I better get on to the next review. It's from Up on Poppy Hill. It's the latest film from Studio Ghibli, or Ghibli. A slight little conversation with somebody on Twitter a little bit earlier on when I was watching Ponyo, whether you pronounce it Ghibli or Ghibli. Either way, don't care. Yeah, I say Ghibli as well, but I've been told it's Ghibli. Or it's actually known as Kokuriko Zakakore. It's directed by...
I can do it as Studio Ghibli.
No, don't do that.
No.
This one's directed by Goro Miyazaki. The last one he did was Tales from Earthsea, which is deemed by a lot of people who are Ghibli fans, that is the worst Ghibli film. So his father didn't actually want him to do that movie, Tales from Earthsea. So Hayao Miyazaki said, no, Goro Miyazaki wasn't suited to that movie. So he's attempted a much more smaller film. This time it centres around a young girl called Umi. In the English version, she's voiced by Sarah Bolger. In the Japanese version, it's Masami Nagasawa. Which is the version I watched. I watched it in Japanese, not in English. Please watch it in Japanese with subtitles. And she lives in a huge, massive house with a lot of people. Her mother's gone off to America to study. She belongs to this school. She goes to school. The school obviously is in Japan. It's segregated off. It's actually in Yokohama. She's friends with a few girls in there who actually lives in the building where she lives as well. One day she meets up with a boy who's Umi, who's voiced by Shun, who's voiced by Junichi Okada in the version that I watched, and he's in charge of this huge, massive fraternity house. You learn that this fraternity house is getting closed down because it's an absolute mess, so the girls team up together to try and clean up this fraternity house so it can stay open. That's about as simple as the story gets. There's a love story interwoven into the movie as well, and if you've seen a Studio Ghibli film, you know the kind of art style that they do. They've never deviated from it. Even though some of their more recent films have looked a bit more flashy, they've never deviated from the hand-drawn or the painted style, which Hayao Miyazaki's next film is entirely painted. So he's gone back to things like My Neighbor Totoro, which the backgrounds in that movie are completely hand-painted. And he's done exactly the same with his latest film. I think this is just a charming movie beyond belief. This movie it's so relaxing to watch a Ghibli film. If you've had a stressful day, if you've had a down day, if you want to watch a simple movie with the best storytelling you'll have ever seen, some of the best animation you'll have ever seen, it flows so well. The characters you fall in love with, the music is just sumptuous. What you're looking on screen is like actually watching a painting come to life. It's beautiful in that instance. And this movie, I have to agree with a lot of people when Tales from Earthsea is my least favourite Studio Ghibli film, and I was apprehensive when Goro Miyazaki gets given a film. This one, because he stripped it back so much and he's concentrated on characters, and you really get involved with the characters. You really get involved with the love story between the two main characters of Shun and Umi. It's beautifully well written. It's beautifully well animated. The music is just absolutely fantastic. It is my favourite animated film of the year, better than Despicable Me 2, but Despicable Me 2 is a different kettle of fish. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous movie. I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
Just going to say on the side though, I actually finally saw Arrietty at the weekend. It was on Film 4 one morning, and I found myself watching it, and because I hadn't seen it, and really, really loved it.
I love every studio.
Yeah.
Film 4 has got a Studio Ghibli season on at the moment. They're showing quite a few of the films, including the British premiere of My Neighbour the Amadas, which has never actually been shown in this country, considering that the film came out originally in 1988. So it's never been shown, and Film 4 are going to be showing that very early on in the morning because it is in Japanese with English subtitles. But I love Film 4 for doing that, for bringing Studio Ghibli films to the forefront and showing that they are the brilliant animation studio that they are. And honestly, From Up on Poppy Hill is at their apex of brilliance. It's just absolutely outstanding.
Okay, last cinema release we're covering this week, because we didn't see Smurfs 2, is Only God Forgives, which is directed by Nicholas Winding Refn, who also wrote the film. Stars Ryan Gosling as Julian, who in the movie is living with his brother in Thailand. The two of them run this kind of boxing ring, sort of boxing club, Thai boxing, which is actually a cover for a drug smuggling operation. And what happens is that Julian's brother Billy actually goes out and basically finds himself involved with a prostitute who he then goes and beats to death. What happens after that is that the police turn up. Amongst them is Lieutenant Chang, who is played by, now I'm going to try and pronounce his name because it's very difficult, Vithaya Pansringam.
I haven't a clue.
But he plays Lieutenant Chang, who is kind of like he is a kind of a very threatening. He's called in when there's a big problem. He sorts it out, and everyone is afraid of him. He sees that the Billy has actually killed this prostitute. Lets the father of the prostitute have time with Billy in a room, which results in the guy killing Billy. And as a result of that, he is then the word gets back to Julian, who then goes to kill the prostitute's dad. But decides not to when he learns that it's the fact that he killed Billy because of the fact that he killed his 16-year-old daughter. Things get a bit more complicated when Crystal, Julian's mother, played by Kristen Scott Thomas, arrives in Thailand to collect her son's body. Here's a clip.
Are you out of your mind? Some killed your brother and you let him go.
It's a little more complicated than that, Mother.
Meaning what exactly?
Billy raped and killed a 16-year-old girl.
I'm sure he had his reasons. Now sit. I know it's hard for you, emotionally. You've lost your brother. Don't worry. I'll take care of killed my son. It's too much for you.
Okay, so you can hear from that clip it has been edited because of the fact that the film is awash with dirty potty mouth language. Most of which comes from Crystal, who, played by Kristen Scott Thomas, is played by her as you've never seen her before. Could not believe it was her. Honestly, just absolutely amazing. It's a completely vile character, absolutely horrible woman. Really, the kind of person that you wouldn't pee on them if they were on fire. And really, it's a case of that. With that, she is absolutely fantastic in the role. It is a horrible role, but it's really well done, really well written, and really well performed with her. She is undoubtedly the best thing in the film, and we've just been discussing that during that clip. The thing as well with it, you've got Ryan Gosling is basically playing very similar to what he played in Drive, only with a little bit less emotion than he had in that film. You have this whole thing of the movie is put together very hyper styled. It's in a very hyper styled way. There are literally scenes where the film is visually very vibrant, looks amazing. You could take a snapshot of it and it would be a piece of art. And there's scenes like that throughout the entire film for its 90-minute running time. There are scenes as well with, you've got especially with Lieutenant Chang as he's chasing down leads to try and find who put out this hit on the man who's been killed. And the fact is that there's some really hard, torturous moments in this film. There's a scene involving a guy basically who's in a chair and he gets pinned down literally by big pins to the chair and tortured with these pins. And it's very graphic. It's very screen curdling in those scenes. For me, it's an interesting film, but it's not Drive, which is what Nicholas Winding Refn did in 2011, which I loved that film. Absolutely love the film. This film I liked, but it's weird and it's not going to be to everyone's taste because of the fact of that it is more of an Eastern philosophy influence in the film. There are scenes with Chang where he's basically standing there and he's doing karaoke. And the reason for this is that karaoke is a big sort of stress reliever thing. It's something that is very therapeutic in the East. But in the West, you know, those scenes can be almost tantamount to courting humour and making people laugh in the cinema. And there was that moment where that happened, and literally you're kind of like thinking, should I be laughing or is this meant to be seriously? That, I think, is a problem with the film, and I think it's a transitional barrier from the East to the West that doesn't quite translate. But everything else in it, visually amazing, visually well done, just too much visual, too much hyper-styling, not so much on the plotting. Gosling is brilliant as ever, but he's got a character that he's not really asking him. It's not much there. I mean, he has less lines, I think, in this than he does in Drive, or about the same.
22 lines of dialogue.
Yeah, and it's not requiring a lot of him. But he's very, very, I don't want to say intellectual, but it's not really intellectual. It's very mental and mentally thought out. But it's just, I think the problem is it's an Eastern film. It's not a Western film, but there are Western elements in it, and it's the mix of the two. The mash doesn't quite meld.
Personally, for me, I just didn't like the film at all. Christian Scott Thomas aside, and some of the visuals aside, the film itself is just boring. It's an absolute mess of a movie. It felt like Nicholas Winding Refn had a good idea where he thought, oh, we'll have loads of violent scenes, we'll stitch it together with very little plot in between. We'll have Ryan Gosling, who was just brilliant in Drive, play a character who was suited just a cardboard cutout. And I think that would have been much better. He would have saved a hell of a lot of money on an actor then. That's the kind of character that he plays. No life in him whatsoever at all. He's just there is one scene where he's just practically a punching bag. He practically does absolutely nothing. Yet if you research that little bit, he supposedly did a lot of martial arts or stuff like that for a few days a week. And I was thinking, really? He did a lot of training for that. So yeah, it's all style, very, very little substance at all. This is Winding Refn trying to be like David Lynch or Terrence Malick, and it's not a road he should actually tread down, because with Drive he created a really good film. Valhalla Rising, I'm not that much of a fan of it, but it still had a decent look to it, and I felt like he went back to that movie, which I didn't like at all.
He did, yeah. That's what I mean by saying it's a mentally thought out. It's a lot more I can't think of the right word, but it's a lot more kind of in the character's head in this film than Drive was, and a lot more like Valhalla Rising was.
Yeah, and I didn't like Valhalla. So for me, it's a complete miss. It's an absolute misstep for me. Right there, that's it for the cinema section of the show. We'll be back in a moment on Spreaker with the Blu-ray and DVD section of the show. If you are listening to this someplace like iTunes or back on Spreaker or whatever, please leave us a comment, please leave us a rating. We want to find out what you think about this show. Well, any kind of comment, even if it's negative, we'll try and do better, but we will slightly cry a little bit. So we will be back in a moment with the Blu-ray and DVD section of the show.
Just this week.